So you've seen what Apple devices can do in terms of accessibility, how you can use those accessibility features to get the most out of your Apple iPhone or your Apple iPad. But how do Android devices stack up against that in terms of accessibility features? Well, actually, not too bad. We're going to have a quick run through the accessibility features that are available on an Android device. Now, Android devices can be a little bit different from each other, so if your device doesn't look exactly like this, don't worry too much. We're using a Huawei P20 Lite. That's the device we're using, and the Android version is Android version 9. So that's Android Pie. So we're going to go into the settings. On my screen, it's at the bottom right here. You should be able to see what I'm tapping on at any given time using just the mirror here. But hopefully you'll also see on the side of the screen a little bit more in detail what I'm seeing on my screen. So let's go into the accessibility features, and we do that by going into settings at the bottom right on my screen. It's a picture of a kind of a cog or a gear. That's the settings icon. So I go into there and I'm looking for something that tells me about accessibility. And on my phone, I see it under Smart Assistance. So the information below talks about accessibility. So let's tap on that. And again, the first one at the very top actually is accessibility. So let's go into accessibility features. And here we have our list of all the different things that are available to help us make full use of the iPhone. Okay, so let's have a quick overview of what each of these does. First of all, we've got Talkback. What's Talkback? Well, as the name implies, Talkback gives you a verbal feedback of what's happening on the screen. Let's give you a bit of a demonstration here. So if I tap on Talkback, we have a toggle switch at the top right here, which allows me to turn Talkback on or off. And we have some information here as well. Now, if you're playing around with this, please do read the information first, because you'll need to know how to turn off the Talkback feature. It changes the way you use your phone. So please do read the About section. So let's turn on Talkback. And we have, I'll just make sure my volume is up. And we have the notification here, various permissions that we need to grant for it to be able to work. You can review that yourself. I'm going to tap on OK. So Talkback
on. Talkback.
So Talkback is now on. You will have heard the feedback that I got there. And now I'm able to actually hear what's going on the screen. Now, just as a little bit of a demonstration of that, I'm just going to show you my home screen.
Home button.
And you'll notice there
Huawei Home folder
that when I went into the home button, I tapped on it once and it gave me a description of it. It didn't actually go to the home page straight away. It gave me a description of what I was on, and I had to double tap to actually get into the home screen. And that's the kind of general rule of thumb here. There's a lot of different controls we could use here, but the basic ones are that I swipe right or left to move through different items on the screen, and I double tap on the screen to activate a particular icon. So, for example, if I tap down here at the bottom right,
Instagram. Double tap to activate, double tap and hold to long press.
It tells me exactly what I've tapped on, but it doesn't open it up. If I want to move from there, because Talkback gives me verbal feedback, it doesn't depend on me seeing the screen. It doesn't matter where I swipe or where I tap on the screen. If I swipe to the right,
folder, exercises.
It just moves on
double
to the
tap
next
to
item.
activate, folder music. Zoom. Double tap to activate, double tap and hold to long press.
So we get that feedback all the time as to where I am on the screen, but also an instruction there of what I need to do to be able to activate it. And the same works if I'm going to the left.
Folder music. Folder, TEANG. Folder, food. Folder, remote. Double tap to activate, double tap and hold to long press.
So each time I'm getting the feedback and it's telling me to double tap to long press. So I'm just going to move quickly onto settings. I'm going to go back and turn off the Talkback feature and move on to the next item.
Folder, Instagram, folder, exercise, folder music, Zoom, podcast guru, settings, double tap.
And a double
Settings.
tap there.
Sounds. Do not disturb. Ringtone. Vibrate. In list. 18 items.
So again, I want to get back to
Double tap to
accessibility. So I'll
activate.
just go through the same kind of route that I went earlier, just using the swipe to the right or the left, double tapping to activate, and we'll move in and we'll turn off the talkback feature.
Apps. Battery. Stop. Digital security. Smart assistants. Smart assistants. Smart search. Accessibility. Accessibility. More audio. Talkback on. When talkback is on. Talkback. Ticked switch. Alert stop talkback. Touching OK will stop. OK. Talkback off.
There we have it. So talkback is off now, and we're back into our settings. So I'll just press back here. We're back into our accessibility settings. Okay, so moving on from the talkback feature, let's move on to select to speak. Now, select to speak is almost like a scaled down version of talkback, whereas talkback will give me feedback on the context of where I am at any given point. It'll also read things. It'll also tell me what I need to do to activate a button, for example. So we get instructions back as well. Select to speak is a lot more simple. Select to speak will simply read out something that's on your screen. So let's turn this on. And we have some notifications again. We'll press OK to accept those. And the main difference to my screen at the moment is just purely that at the very bottom right of my screen, just down here, we've got an extra icon. You might not see that too clearly in the mirror, but you might see it on the bigger version on the side of your screen. And the icon that's there now is a picture of a person standing up with their arms open. And that's really the only visual difference I see on the screen. But the difference that it makes here is when I tap on that button, I get a small toolbar up here. And as soon as that's up, it allows me to select to speak. So I can select either a button or I can select some text and it will read out to me. So let's select a button. Let's select one label here.
More settings.
So you will have heard it saying more settings. So we're getting it to read out. Now, interestingly, as soon as it's read out once, then the toolbar disappears. Select to speak works once on a button, and then it disappears. It's a kind of one-use sort of thing. And the reason for that is that obviously, once you've read it out, you might want to actually use the button. So if I tap on it now, it doesn't read it out. It actually lets me use the button. So let's go back again, and we're back into select to speak. And just to see another element of how it works, we can also read sections of text. Now, we might not see exactly where the text is, but so long as we have a rough idea of a block of text, for example, we can just tap and drag our finger across an area of text and it'll read out to us. So just as an example of how it does that, I'm going to tap somewhere in the middle. Sorry, I'll turn on the select to speak first down here. Then tap somewhere along the middle and drag along. And as soon as I release...
When select to speak is on, you can tap specific items on your screen to hear them read aloud.
And I'll just stop that for a moment. So you notice there that it went to the start of the sentence and it read all the way across the end of the line. Even though that was outside the box that I selected, it kind of takes a bit of a common sense approach to this, so that it's going to start from the start of a sentence and read the whole thing for us. So that's select to speak. Let's turn that off. And we'll go back out to our accessibility menu. Now, text to speech is simply the kind of governing settings that apply to both talkback and select to speak. So when we have the voice that's coming out there, we have the option to change the speech rate, make it faster or slower, change the pitch of the voice as well, and a couple of other settings. But whatever we change there in text to speech, well, that's how either talkback or select to speak will talk from then on. Just finally on this audio section, just a quick word on mono audio and captions. Both of these are settings that are designed for somebody who might be a little bit hard of hearing. So mono audio, it takes away the stereo setting on any device. So some devices will play back in stereo. And basically what that means, obviously we're kind of used to the term stereo, but it splits the audio channel so that if you've got two speakers, for example, you will have some sounds coming out of the left-hand side, some sounds coming out of the right-hand side. And that can sound quite good if you're looking for that stereo effect. But of course, if you've got more difficulty in hearing from one side than from the other, then there might be actually elements of the audio that you're missing. So mono audio just combines both channels into one channel, so that what you're hearing from either left or right speaker is exactly the same, and you won't be missing anything that's coming out. Captions as well is likewise to assist if we're having difficulty hearing what's playing in a video, for example. If captions are on, you'll have captions. It says preview here. Captions will look like this. But you've got text size and caption style, white on black here. We could change those around to make the captions look a little bit different. It's not 100% this, at least not in my testing, but it can be very useful when it works. So they're the main things around audio. But let's just move on very quickly into the visual settings here. Now, just in this section, in this overview, we'll just focus, first of all, on magnification, because this is quite a powerful one. So on magnification, if I go into magnification here, similar to Talkback, it actually changes the way that my phone works to a degree. Now, you won't notice that straight away. I'm going to turn it on here, and nothing's too different. I can still tap on back and it works properly. My phone is still working relatively well. But as you'll notice from the information here, we can activate our magnifier now by tapping 3 times on the screen. So 3 times quite fast, and it turns on a magnifier. Now, this largely, it's like looking at a page through a magnifying glass. You're not seeing the whole page through that magnifying glass, so you need to move the magnifier across your page to be able to see it properly. Now, swiping up and down and left and right already has a particular control on smartphones. So we need to have a different control, and that is using 2 fingers. We can scroll across. We can use, basically we're moving the magnifier to see a different part of the screen that was already up there. And if we want to make it bigger, we can pinch out, and that makes it bigger, and it holds that setting, or we can pinch in, and that will reduce the magnifier. And again, to turn it off again, triple tap, and it's off. To turn off the overall feature here, let's just turn off magnifier, and we'll come back out of that. So what other accessibility features do we have under the visual heading here? Well, 2 particularly useful ones are color inversion and high contrast text. Now, both of these are really aimed at somebody who you might have a vision impairment, but you don't necessarily need to make something bigger. Maybe your vision impairment is such that actually what you need to do is change the color display in some way or boost the contrast in some way. Now, just to start with high contrast text, this is quite an easy one to just highlight here. Because as you're looking at the screen here, you'll notice that under color inversion, you might see this on the larger screen on the side. Under color inversion, it has a little bit of information about it. It says may affect performance. And that information is in grey instead of in black. Now, grey can be a little bit harder to see against a white background. Similarly, just under advanced visual effects, you have the same thing here. Color, blur, and shadow is the information underneath. It's in grey. Well, that kind of grey text can be quite hard to see on a white background. So high contrast text just changes it purely to a black or a white, something that gives you high contrast to make sure that you see it. So let's turn that on, and you'll notice that these pieces of information that were in grey before have now been put into black text. So that's what that one's about. Color inversion similarly provides a visual impact. It's not necessarily making the screen bigger or making text bigger, but it's just changing the colours that the screen is presented in. So let's have a look at this. If I turn that on, we have our colour inversion. And now instead of black on white, and we had an awful lot of white there, if we suffered from glare, maybe that was a bit of an issue. Now we have white on black, so the majority of the screen is black. And again, that might help our acuity. We might be able to make our way around the screen a little bit easier now. So let's just turn that off. Okay, so we've skipped over a couple of features there in the visual settings. Some of them wouldn't necessarily apply to us all the time. They might be used in particular circumstances, such as large mouse pointer. Well, you have the possibility of connecting a mouse to Android devices. But if you're not doing that regularly, you won't necessarily need to worry about this particular setting. But you have the option to make the mouse pointer larger so that it's more visible on the screen. So let's move down to interaction control. Now, the first one that I want to just highlight here is the accessibility shortcut, because this can be very useful if you're finding one of the other accessibility features to be useful. Instead of having to go through all of your settings menus, finding the particular feature, turning on the toggle switch, there's an easier way to turn on or off that feature. You can assign it to the accessibility shortcut. Now, let's just go in here. And you'll see that you've got toggle switches here, and you've also got a select feature just below. And the information at the top tells us how this works. After the accessibility shortcut is enabled, you can press and hold the volume up and down buttons for 3 seconds to activate the feature you selected below. So the volume up and down on my device is on the side here, and I'm going to have to press those together for 3 seconds to be able to turn on or off the feature that I want. So I need to, first of all, make sure that this accessibility shortcut itself is turned on. So we'll get our notification. I'll press OK there. And we also want to assign it to one of the features that we find particularly useful. When I tap on the one over here, I get a list of all the different ones that we might use. So maybe Talkback was particularly useful to me, and I could tap on that, and that will turn Talkback on for me. So let's try that. Again, we get our notifications here. I'm going to click on OK, and we'll come back out of this, and I'll press and hold the volume keys on the side. I'll press and hold up and down together.
Talkback on.
And Talkback is now on. We can verify that by sweeping right or left.
Navigate up button. Double tap to more option. Accessibility. Touch and hold. Click when cursor stops. Off. Double tap to activate.
So we can hear that Talkback is working there. If I want to turn it off again, same thing again. So volume up and volume down. Let's just press and hold.
Talkback off.
And we get the confirmation that Talkback is off. So that's a particularly useful one. Again, if we move down just to the very end of the interaction control here, we have power button ends call. So again, it's making use of the physical buttons that are on the side of the phone here to make it a little bit easier to use some of the features on the phone. So when we're making a phone call, usually we'd have to press the red button to hang up, and that's a visual button on the screen. But we can use the power button to end a call. So again, we would just turn that on. And when I'm finished with a phone call, instead of having to find the red circle on the screen and pressing the red circle to hang up, I could use my power button, which is this one here for me on my screen. So we've skipped over some of these accessibility features fairly quickly. It's just to give you a bit of an overview of exactly what is available. There's a couple of other ones here that you might want to play around with. Again, they're for different things. Switch access, for example. It can allow you to control the phone by using an external device such as a mouse to be able to click on particular things. And that can help if you have maybe dexterity issues moving around the screen. It can help you to control the device. So there's a number of different accessibility features there that can help us to get the full use out of the Android smartphone.